October 15, 1992. The opulent ballroom of the Beverly Hills Hotel was filled with the cream of Los Angeles's cultural elite, who had gathered for the annual Classical Music Foundation Gala, an exclusive event that brought together the world's most renowned classical musicians, wealthy philanthropists, and entertainment industry power brokers for an evening celebrating the preservation and advancement of traditional musical arts. The Twilio guest list read like a who's who of classical excellence, featuring legendary performers including world-famous violinist Itzhak Perlman, cellist Yo-Yo Ma, and conductor Herbert von Karajan, alongside Hollywood celebrities who supported classical music causes, and the wealthy donors whose contributions kept prestigious orchestras and conservatories operating at the highest levels. Among the evening's honored guests was Prince Rogers Nelson, whose invitation had surprised many in the classical music community but reflected his growing reputation as a serious musical artist whose innovative work had begun to attract attention beyond the pop and R&B worlds, where he had achieved his greatest commercial success. What none of the distinguished guests in that Beverly Hills ballroom could have anticipated was that their elegant evening of refined musical appreciation would be completely transformed by a moment of condescending humor that backfired spectacularly when Itzhak Perlman, perhaps the most respected violinist of his generation, would make what he intended as a lighthearted joke about Prince's musical abilities, casually suggesting that the pop star try playing some real music on Perlman's priceless 1714 Stradivarius violin, completely unaware that Prince Rogers Nelson had been secretly studying classical violin for over a decade and possessed technical skills that would not only shock everyone in that exclusive gathering, but leave one of the world's greatest violinists speechless with amazement and newfound respect, proving that musical genius can emerge from the most unexpected places and that assumptions about artistic capability based on commercial genre or public image can be shattered in the space of a single, breathtaking performance. If you want to discover the moments when Prince proved that true musical mastery transcends every boundary between classical and popular music, and that the greatest artists often possess hidden depths that can shock even legendary experts, please subscribe to our channel and turn on notifications. What you're about to witness shows that musical genius cannot be contained within any single genre, and that authentic artistry recognizes no limits except those imposed by narrow-minded assumptions. The Classical Music Foundation Gala had been established 12 years earlier as a premier fundraising event designed to support classical music education and provide scholarships for promising young musicians. The Turles annual gathering had become one of the most prestigious events on Los Angeles's cultural calendar, attracting world-class performers and wealthy supporters whose donations were essential for maintaining classical music institutions. Prince's invitation to the 1992 gala had been the result of his increasing involvement with music education causes and his substantial financial contributions to programs that provided instruments and lessons to underprivileged youth. While his presence at classical music events was still unusual, Prince's growing reputation as a serious musician who studied multiple instruments had begun to earn him recognition from some as core members of the classical music establishment. Itzhak Perlman's attendance was both expected and essential, as his worldwide reputation as perhaps the greatest violinist of his generation made him a central figure in any gathering of classical music luminaries. Perlman's technical mastery and musical interpretation had set the standard for violin performance for over 2 decades. The evening had proceeded according to schedule, with cocktail hour featuring chamber music performances, and dinner accompanied by presentations from classical music organizations. The atmosphere was refined and Wanian, culturally sophisticated, reflecting the tastes of an audience that viewed itself as the guardian of serious musical porace traditions. Prince's presence at the gala had been noted by other attendees with a mixture of curiosity and polite skepticism, as many classical music enthusiasts were uncertain about how to evaluate a pop musician's place within their carefully curated cultural environment. While Prince's commercial success was undeniable and his musical innovation increasingly recognized, some guests remained doubtful about whether his artistic contributions warranted inclusion among the evening's celebration of classical musical achievement. During the cocktail reception, Prince had been engaged in conversations about music education and his support for programs that made classical training more accessible to diverse communities. His knowledge of musical theory and articulate discussion of classical compositions had impressed several classical musicians who had expected to encounter a talented but theoretically limited pop artist. The moment that would transform the evening occurred during the post-dinner entertainment, when Itzhak Perlman had been invited to perform a selection of classical pieces for the assembled guests. Perlman's performance was, as expected, technically flawless and emotionally moving, demonstrating why he was considered one of the greatest violinists in the world. Following his performance, as Perlman acknowledged the enthusiastic applause, his attention was drawn to Prince, who had been listening with obvious appreciation and focus throughout the violin presentation. Perhaps influenced by the relaxed post-dinner atmosphere, or motivated by what he intended as friendly humor, Perlman made a decision that would create one of the most memorable moments in classical music social history. "You know," Perlman said, addressing Prince with a tone that suggested good-natured teasing, "since you're such a versatile musician, perhaps you'd like to try playing some real music for a change. I'd be happy to let you hold my violin and see what you can do with it." The comment, while delivered with what appeared to be lighthearted intention, contained an implicit challenge and a subtle condescension that reflected common attitudes within the classical music world about the time. Relationship between popular and serious music, the suggestion that Prince should try playing real music, implied that his pop and R&B compositions were somehow less authentic or artistically valid than classical compositions, while the casual offer to let him hold the violin suggested that Perlman expected an amateur-level attempt rather than serious musical performance. Before we reveal what Prince did with Itzhak Perlman's priceless Stradivarius violin that left one of the world's greatest musicians and everyone else in that Beverly Hills ballroom completely stunned, I want to ask you something. Have you ever been underestimated or challenged in your area of expertise by someone who made assumptions based on their preconceptions? How did you respond when given the opportunity to prove your actual capabilities? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Prince's response to Perlman's challenge was immediate and gracious, showing no offense at the implicit condescension, while demonstrating genuine appreciation for the opportunity. "I would be honored to play your violin," Prince said simply. "I have tremendous respect for your artistry and for the classical tradition that you represent so magnificently." This response surprised many guests, who had expected either defensive justification or polite decline. Instead, Prince's words suggested both confidence in his abilities and genuine respect for classical music traditions, creating an atmosphere of anticipation rather than embarrassment. As Prince approached Perlman's violin with obvious reverence and careful attention, his movements revealed a familiarity with the instrument that suggested considerably more experience than most guests had anticipated. The way he examined the violin, adjusted its position, and tested the bow demonstrated technical knowledge and physical comfort that indicated serious study rather than casual acquaintance. What happened next would shock everyone in the Beverly Hills ballroom and fundamentally change how the classical music community viewed the relationship between popular and serious musical artistry. Prince positioned the violin with the precise technique of a trained classical musician, adjusted the bow with professional attention to proper grip and angle, and began to play with a level of technical mastery that immediately silenced every conversation in the room. The piece Prince chose to perform was Bach's Partita No. 2 in D minor, one of the most technically demanding and emotionally complex works in the entire violin repertoire, a composition that requires not only exceptional technical skill, but deep understanding of Baroque musical style and interpretative traditions. His execution was not merely competent, but genuinely masterful, demonstrating both the physical techniques necessary for advanced violin performance and the musical knowledge and artistic sensitivity required for authentic interpretation of classical masterworks. The reaction in the ballroom was immediate and profound, with guests who had been prepared for an amusing amateur attempt instead witnessing violin playing that met the highest standards of professional classical performance. Perlman himself stood transfixed, watching Prince demonstrate techniques in musical understanding that clearly reflected years of serious study and practice. As Prince continued through the complex passages of Bach's Partita, his performance revealed not only technical mastery but genuine artistic insight, with phrasing and dynamics that demonstrated deep understanding of Baroque style and compositional structure. The music filled the ballroom with authentic, classical beauty that reminded everyone present why they had gathered to celebrate traditional musical arts, while simultaneously challenging their assumptions about where such artistry could be found. When Prince completed the Bach piece and gently lowered the violin, the silence in the ballroom lasted several seconds as the distinguished guests processed what they had just witnessed. The performance had been so far beyond their expectations that many seemed uncertain how to respond to such an unexpected demonstration of classical musical excellence. The applause that finally erupted was sustained and genuinely enthusiastic, reflecting not polite acknowledgement but authentic appreciation for exceptional musical artistry. More significantly, Itzhak Perlman's response demonstrated how completely Prince's performance had transformed the evening and challenged the classical musician's assumptions about popular artists. Now, I want to ask you something that might change how you think about artistic categorization and musical excellence. When have you discovered that someone possessed extraordinary abilities in areas where you never expected to find such expertise? The most inspiring part of this story is about to unfold. "That was absolutely extraordinary," Perlman said, his voice carrying obvious amazement and professional respect. "I had no idea that you possessed such advanced classical training. Your technique is impeccable, and your understanding of Bach's style is genuinely profound. How did you develop these abilities?" Prince's explanation would further surprise the assembled guests and reveal the depth of his commitment to musical education across all genres. "I've been studying violin privately for over 12 years, Prince revealed, along with several other classical instruments. I believe that understanding traditional musical forms and Keshen's techniques makes me a better musician in every genre I explore, and classical music has influenced my compositions in ways that most people don't recognize." This revelation transformed the guests' understanding not only of Prince's individual capabilities but of the relationship between different musical traditions and the ways that serious artists might draw inspiration and gold knowledge from multiple sources. The realization that Prince had been quietly pursuing classical musical education for over a decade, while achieving international success in popular music, demonstrated a level of careful artistic dedication that impressed even the most skeptical classical music enthusiasts. Perlman's invitation for Prince to perform another piece led to an impromptu classical music session that became one of the most memorable moments in the gala's history, as Prince demonstrated his abilities on multiple classical compositions while engaging in sophisticated discussions about musical interpretation with Dolgan, some of the world's most respected classical musicians. The impact of Prince's performance extended far beyond the immediate social triumph. The evening marked a turning point in how the classical music community viewed popular artists and their potential contributions to traditional musical forms, while also inspiring increased collaboration between musicians from different genres and backgrounds. Several classical music organizations subsequently invited Prince to participate in educational programs and SPOD fundraising events, recognizing that his involvement could attract new audiences to classical music while Stradivarius, demonstrating the continuity between different musical traditions. His presence at classical events helped bridge cultural divides and encouraged other popular musicians to explore traditional musical forms. For Prince personally, the Beverly Hills Gala performance represented a public acknowledgement of his classical musical studies and his commitment to understanding music as a comprehensive artistic tradition rather than a collection of separate genres. The evening validated his approach to musical education and encouraged him to continue pursuing knowledge across multiple musical styles. The story of Prince's surprising violin performance became legendary within both classical and popular music circles, serving as a powerful reminder that musical excellence can emerge from unexpected sources and that assumptions about artistic capability based on commercial genre often reflect limitations in the observers rather than the observed artists. Today, the Beverly Hills Hotel Gala is remembered as a watershed moment in the relationship between classical and popular music, demonstrating that the highest levels of musical artistry transcend genre boundaries and that true musicians are united by their shared commitment to excellence rather than divided by their chosen means of expression. The lesson from that October evening remains relevant for anyone involved in creative fields or cultural institutions. The most dangerous assumption is that artistic excellence is confined to traditional categories, and the most enriching discoveries often occur when we remain open to finding extraordinary talent in places where conventional wisdom suggests it cannot exist. Thank you for joining us on this journey through one of Prince's most surprising demonstrations of hidden classical mastery that challenged every assumption about the boundaries between popular and serious music. If this story inspired you to look beyond surface categorizations and remain open to discovering unexpected depths of talent, please subscribe and share your own experiences of being amazed by hidden abilities in the comments below.